priority. It's Tuesday, everybody. It's Jim, it's Matt, and Matthew. We're 48, well, not 48, we're a little over 24 hours away from the opening of the season, which is tomorrow night on Netflix, of course. Where else would you open the season? At 8:05, the Yankees, pardon me. The Yankees are in San Francisco. Max Fried on the hill versus Mr. Webb. And we begin the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be the biggest change coming into the year is the way that the markets have shifted and where you're going to be able to watch games versus where you're not going to be able to watch games this season.
I think one of the big things in that regard, as a fan, is that there's no more blackouts.
Yeah,
and I think that's really going to help.
Yeah.
So, and you're in the Atlanta area, so you've got Braves, TV, where it's going to be a lot less of the fluff and other things that were on the Bally's group, and that whole Main Street media group. You're going to have a lot more of just the game, basically the game and the pregame and the postgame. And that's okay with me. I mean, I don't really want to subscribe to a television network that plays nothing but repeats of games that are 10 or 15 years old.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting. People are going to have to learn. There's going to be a learning curve in terms of the access. I know there are a lot of people that still don't fully understand like the way the Braves have worked with their media.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think everybody who came off that Bally's deal, and I'm sorry, FanDuel, Bally's then FanDuel, the FanDuel deal, they're always going to have to get used to it. But cable companies have picked up, and they're going to be on the same channel to where they used to be most places on cable. But if you stream, now you've got the wonderful situation. If you buy the Major League Baseball package, which you don't have to do through Netflix, I mean through ESPN, you can. You can do it if that is the way you want to do it, but you cannot. If you choose not to, you can do it that way as well.
Yeah,
and that way you get all the games, but you're not blanked out of your local.
Yeah, and the problem or the issue that people had with ESPN and that partnership is there was a belief that meant that you had to purchase the ESPN and the MLB subscriptions, which if you have to purchase both of them, I think would be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $100 for the year.
About what?
About $100 for the year, maybe probably.
Actually, it's more than that. Yeah.
That's. Yeah,
but
there you go.
But what they did is they left that kind of ambiguous, right?
Yeah.
So they didn't. But when you dug into it, you realize, wait a minute, I don't have to do that. Now, what you do have to do is you spend your $20 a month on. You spend your $20 a month on your local team, and then there's another $100 for the, for the rest of the season for the. Major League Baseball package. So it's going to be up around $150 for everything. But that way you get all of your team and everybody else's team.
Yeah. So, and I mean, that works out well.
It's not a bad deal. I don't find that to be a bad deal.
Yeah, no, it's not. And I mean, really for most people, the value is going to lie in being able to watch their team when they want to.
Right. And that's the key. Now, you're going to have Netflix tomorrow night, but then again, the Yankees San Francisco game 1 of the season is not necessarily, if I don't have it, if I don't watch it, I'm not going to go, be very upset about it. So
yeah, no, that's not a heartbreaker to miss. I will give them credit. It's a really good pitching matchup to start off the year, and I think that's part of the allure to opening day is that really, I know some injuries happen in spring training, and you can't avoid them, but it's a fresh start. Everybody feels like they have the same chance to go win that World Series. And really, you're getting a lot of these rosters and as close to full health that you're going to get for a lot of them.
Right. On Thursday, the game at 1:15 is actually going to be on NBC and Peacock. So NBC's picked up, for those of you who don't know, Netflix got, when ESPN backed out of the deal, Netflix took over the first game of the season, okay, which traditionally was an ESPN game. Then Netflix also bought the All-Star Home Run Derby, and they get one more game during the regular season, which I believe is the game out, the Field of Dreams game, when they play out there in Iowa.
Yeah, so, and
go ahead.
I mean, I would say aside from obviously the World Series, mm-hmm. I think I honestly, if I was in TV and making those decisions, I would rather have the Field of Dreams game than the All-Star game.
Oh, 100%. It's definitely something that and see, NBC had been, they were the first network to cover Major League Baseball, and they covered it for many, many, many years. Mm-hmm. So now that they're back, I don't think they're going. They're not giving this up. This is a package that they're going to keep. And so they wanted, and they got the opportunity to do opening day. And it's Pittsburgh at the Mets. You got Skeens pitching for the Buccos, and Peralta pitching for the Mets. And I think that's going to be fun. It's good to have NBC back. Costas is going to do the Baseball Night in America, where he'll host the games. And they've got a very good set of announcers, and it's good to see NBC back in the game.
Yeah, it's good to see Bob Costas in a role where he really didn't have the ability to call game. He just wasn't able to keep his energy up really throughout the entirety of the game. But he's such an iconic figure, and he's such an iconic voice that it's really good that NBC found him a role that does not require him to do as much in terms of what calling a game requires.
Well, I think the thing with Bob that I respect is he knew when to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of guys don't.
No.
And he said he realized it by listening to the game. He said he watched the game over again. And he said, that's terrible. I'm not doing. I don't think there'd be anybody to say Bob Costas can't call a baseball game. But he has a standard, and he felt that he wasn't meeting that standard.
Yeah, and that's something pretty special to be able to have, and really anybody in any profession, when they understand when to call it quits and aren't forced out the door. And that's something that's always nice to kind of be able to do it on your own terms.
Right. And to an extent, that's what happened to Al Michaels.
Yeah.
With NBC Sunday Night Football. He went over to Amazon Prime. And that deal is he's got 3 one-year deals. So it's like, okay, if I don't feel like it after that, and there's a 10-year difference in the ages of Bob and Al. There's a whole different thing. Mm-hmm. Bob's 73, and Al's a little over 80. I think he's 81, 82. So I think, and I think that's Bob realizes, hey, look, I can sit down and I can talk baseball, and so hosting this, this pregame show is something that, I like to do, because baseball far and away has always been Bob's favorite sport. So that's where he likes to go. So opening day tomorrow, NBC. Opening night tomorrow night. NBC. It's Netflix. Wednesday night, it's NBC on Thursday afternoon. The White Sox in Milwaukee. We've got 2 p.m. That's the Brewers and the White Sox. Smith for the White Sox. Mirakowski for for Milwaukee. Washington is in Chicago. That's 2:20 start. So Cavelli and Boyd. Minnesota, Baltimore. That's 3:05 start. Ryan and Rogers in that game. Your Red Sox at Cincinnati. How about that? 4:10 game. Crochet and Abbott.
Yeah, well, I'll just toss a quick one. The Red Sox actually dodged a bullet in that opening day matchup. Hunter Green was supposed to be Cincinnati's opening day starter, but he suffered an injury, so he is not going to go for the first, I believe, couple months of the season.
Wow, that's a loss.
It is.
LA, the Angels are in Houston. That's Soriano for the Angels, Brown for Houston. Detroit opens, and these are all Thursday games. 4:10, that's Skubal and Pavetta. You got Tampa Bay opening in St. Louis, 4:15. Rasmussen and Libertone. Texas at Philadelphia. That's a 4:05 start. That's Evaldi at Sanchez. Dodgers. The Dodgers in Arizona in prime time on NBC. NBC has a doubleheader on opening day. Arizona at the Dodgers. Gallen pitching for Arizona. Yamamoto gets the ball for the Dodgers. And the last game on the schedule at 10:10 in Seattle, it's Cleveland, Seattle. Beebe throwing for Cleveland, Gilbert on the hill for Seattle.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough start for Cleveland. Really, when the strength of their program or of their team is not going to be their pitching staff.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at it that way, and you're going out west, playing as late as they're playing, and you get Gilbert from Seattle, and not only Gilbert, but in the following games, the rest of those Seattle arms, Brian Wu, I would assume, is probably their number two coming into the season. So it's just going to be a tough start to the year probably for Cleveland. But they're also a team that I've doubted plenty of years in the past, and they just go out there and they win baseball games when you think they just don't have a chance.
Right. I think another thing, too, which I feel is very important to note, is that the situation with Seattle, we talked about it with Randy Rosarena and Cal Raleigh. That all seems to be that seems to be in the past now. They seem to have buried the hatchet and seem to be okay with each other, and that's all water under the bridge. Look, you can't spend 200 days with somebody on your team and not have some sort of relationship with them.
Yeah, I mean, and you definitely aren't going to be able to spend that much time with them and have any form of dislike towards them. Otherwise, it's going to eventually show through. And again, talked about it when the situation happened, is that's something that can spread throughout the locker room and really kind of mess up a season.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, one of the things that, Randy's one of these passion guys.
Mm-hmm.
He's in the moment. But he's also, Steve Kinsella, who's going to join us next week. Steve's starting his 14th year of covering Major League Baseball, and predominantly the American League East. He's going to come on and talk to us about it, but he knows Randy really well, and I spoke with him the other day, and he'll tell you the same thing, that there's not a player that played for Tampa Bay when Randy was there that didn't like him.
Yeah.
So he said, whatever, could he pull a bonehead thing? Yeah. But did anybody hold it against him? No.
Yeah, no, he's a guy that's been loved by his teammates really at most of the stops along the way.
Yeah, so I don't think Cal Raleigh and he's he's going to be a problem. I'm really kind of surprised. I mean, you mentioned it that the Braves did sign Lucas Giolito. I'm kind of surprised that it took him so long for somebody to get to him.
Yeah, he's a guy that really pitched well last year, and
Hmm.
I have to assume that the concerns stem from his injury history
Hmm.
and really only getting one good season out of the last three from Lucas Giolito.
Hmm.
But when he was back, he was back and really at his best form that he's been in since he
Hmm.
was in a Chicago White Sox uniform. So that was really good to see. But again, I think people are worried about the age and the injury history and just how long, just his longevity throughout the season. Because you look at it towards the end of the year, his velo ticked down and he started giving up a lot more home runs, striking out less people
Hmm.
towards the end of the year. So there are legitimate concerns that you would have when investing in Giolito. But in the situation of the Braves, if you're really looking for a guy to kind of get your rotation through the
Hmm.
first half of the season, there's no better signing out there on the market for you.
Yeah. I think part of the problem too, probably the interesting thing to me anyway, was that I mean, I saw Lucas when he was drafted and the Nationals had him, and it was a couple of the national scouts go, the talent is there. We just have to make sure that he can get through it, right?
Yeah,
That he can get up to the major league team. So when they traded him to Detroit, a couple of the um, scouts talked to me and said, "Look, he's going to do well. He'll be fine." And he did. He won he won the Cy Young,
yeah,
the year after they traded him. But it was always everybody's concern on the national side was he had they drafted him out of high school, paid him a lot of money. Of course, he was a Scott
mm-hmm.
Boras guy, so you're going to pay him a lot of money. Um, and then they were concerned that crap, we get this guy, and the problem with him is, he literally had Tommy John surgery before he ever made it to major leagues. I'm talking about
Yeah,
to even the minor leagues. So he got
yeah.
he got Tommy John surgery right out of high school.
Well,
So
and
that
that's something.
concerned him. That concerned the Nationals as to what's the durability. How many years have we got on this guy?
Yeah, and that's something now that is really less of a concern. If
Hmm.
Lucas Giolito came out this year, him having
Yeah,
Tommy John coming right out of high school, that's not something that you're worried about. You're looking at the
no.
talent, you're looking at the arm, and it's pretty much a given that Tommy John's going to happen. But I can
Hmm.
understand why that occurred when he was drafted.
Hmm. And so I think that, I mean, for me, if I were going to have Lucas Giolito on my team, he would be my, like, I don't know that he would be my fifth or sixth, fifth starter or something, whatever you want to call it. He's going to eat up innings for me. So I'm going to put him in that role of, how you have openers and you go through this, the on days when you don't want to start a sixth guy. Um, he would be
Hmm.
perfect for me for 3 or 4 innings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he'd be good in that opener role. I'm very
Mhm.
curious now that he is signed how they're going to work him up because he didn't have spring training. I would
No,
assume that he was putting himself through his own kind of regiment and plan.
sure, but that's not
But
real.
yeah, that's not spring training baseball. It's a difference. So
Mhm.
I'm curious if maybe they're going to start him kind of in that opener role like you're talking about, or if they're going to choose to send him down to AAA and let him work up down there before they call him up maybe a couple weeks into the year.
Well, I think that would be the way I would want to do it. Um, in large part because I wouldn't want to take the opportunity, to take the chance on, on. I mean, he's got a pillow contract, right? It's a 1 year deal.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a case where you can tell like any help is good help for Atlanta because they called up their top pitching prospect, Didier Fuentes, to start the year. He made the opening day roster, and with the injuries they've had, and honestly, the injuries they've had, when you pair that with the age of the guy who's currently their ace and Chris Sale, he's I think
Hmm.
38 years old this season, and he's a guy with injury history. Spencer Strider's a guy that hasn't really gotten his velocity back. There's a lot of
Hmm.
there's a lot of question marks in that Braves rotation right now, and so they'll take any help they can get.
Well, let's hope so. Um, I think we all want to have that situation, right? You want to absolutely know where things are and what's happening from that standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's up with
more,
the? Oh, go ahead.
I was about to say more is always better when it comes to your pitching depth and your pitching health, because
Yeah.
you cannot count on anything throughout the season when it comes to durability in your pitching staff.
Mm-hmm. And what now? You're going with the Red Sox. You're guys.
Mm-hmm.
What concerns you more than anything right now? Not necessarily from that standpoint of basically what if you have to say this is what has to go right for me. What's that going to look like?
Well, so there's a couple ways to go with this, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the Red Sox need their pitching to remain what it was last year. Aroldis Chapman can't afford to have a drop off. None of these guys in the bullpen can afford to drop off. Garrett Crochet can't really afford that either. And
Mm-hmm.
then they have to have their young guys hit. You have to have Caleb Durbin have a good year at third base, Marcelo Meyer, Roman Anthony, Connolly Early in the pitching staff. These are all guys that the Red Sox have really kind of put all their chips in on, and
Mm-hmm.
they need them to pan out if they're going to have a good season. And if they don't, then they're still not going to be in the worst place in the world, but it's just not going to be what many people in Boston would consider a success.
Mm-hmm. So what would be okay, let's say this, okay? Let's say that they're not going to win the division because of I don't think I'm offending anybody out there who's a Red Sox fan. But they certainly have are they capable of finishing second or third?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think you say you're not offending a Red Sox fan. I really think that's the expectation coming into the year for
Mm-hmm.
people in that clubhouse and really the fan base as well, is to go and win this division. With the way that they played last year and the improvement they showed, it's not an all-in year, because if it was an all-in year, you would have expected some bigger moves out of them in the offseason. But it's definitely a year that they're looking at really. World Series contenders is the way I think a lot of people in Boston look at this roster.
Mm-hmm. And you think they actually are looking at that and say they're a contender?
Yeah, I think people have enough belief in this pitching
Are they
staff.
delusional? What? No.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I think there's an obvious tier of, you go the Los Angeles Dodgers, and then it's everybody else in the year. And when you look at everybody else aside from the Dodgers, I think the Red Sox line up. But again, it all relies on their pitching. Their pitching has to show up this year. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't matter at all, because they didn't make the necessary improvements to the lineup to be able to necessarily go and hit with everybody this year.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think too, and this is fun. The fun part is that you've got some really talented players on that team, and a lot of young kids too. And you can strike lightning in a bottle. I mean, look at what the Orioles did a few years ago.
Yeah,
they snuck up on everybody, and it's like, well, wait a minute, where'd these guys come from?
In fairness, it's kind of in a similar model to what the Orioles had a couple of years ago. Is they have some of their established veterans around the diamond that they're going to lean on. Trevor Story's in there at shortstop, right? And you have Jarren Duran, which at this point is considered a veteran, and you have the stud ace that you traded for, right? And Garrett Crochet, but I think they did a better job of filling out their roster. I don't think the prospects, they don't have as many and as highly touted prospects at all the positions the way the Orioles had, but they're built in a similar manner, the way they're going to try and really lean on those young guys and that pitching staff.
It's one of the things too that I thought was entertaining is that the more I watched the Orioles that year, right? The more they played, the more they believed in themselves. And I think
Yeah.
that's maybe where you're talking about what's going on with the Red Sox.
Yeah, and that's something that they need. There was a belief that grew throughout the year last year, and they're really looking for that to carry over into this season.
Yeah, and the other thing, part of the problem with what happened in Baltimore was that it was not the first year; it was the second year that had them. That when Gunnar Henderson and guys like that didn't hit their expectations.
Yeah.
I think that was probably the biggest problem for them. Was they felt, okay, well, we're going to do this again, when they didn't. Um,
Hmm.
and so then they freaked about it instead of just kind of like chilling and saying, okay, wait a minute, we're not where we want to be, but we can be. Um, so
And I think a big piece of that has to do with the play of Adley Rushman that
mhm,
season. And he was kind of the leader of that younger pack. And so when
right.
he didn't get his play up, everybody else kind of felt like they didn't have, I guess, direction. And I think,
Hmm.
again, similarly for the Red Sox this year, is there's going to be a lot of eyes, specifically young eyes,
Hmm.
on how Roman Anthony plays. If he plays up to the expectations, then it's not going to be an issue.
Yeah, there was also Jackson Holiday. Um, and he was somebody I think a lot of people thought was going to than do better than he did. And my camera went nuts on me here. Sorry about that, gang. Um, so yeah, I mean, Jackson Holiday was a guy who they thought was going to be an everyday player, and he bounced back and forth, up and down from the minor leagues.
Yeah.
So I guess there's the good news and the bad news, right? The good news is they're young, and the bad news is they're young. So it you're hoping that okay, the Orioles realized that they might have shown up a little early, right? Uh, Ahead of schedule. I
Yeah.
think the Pete Alonso thing will help them. That they needed that bat, and Pete can do that. Um,
Yeah.
but
Veteran
he's
presence.
not the answer. I mean, the answer is the pitching. The
It
Orioles,
absolutely is. And that's something that they haven't really addressed still.
no, they didn't. They didn't spend any money on that important part. But what's a mother to do, right? There you got they they should have, but they didn't, and now you can't. It's all up to what the arms can come through, and they also didn't address some bullpen issues that they had.
No, they really didn't, and that's an issue for them. Especially, they used to have Felix Bautista, and he's
Yeah,
still back there, but he's not in the same form that he was when they went on that run back in 2023. So it's not something that they can really bank on in that bullpen.
no, when you're in the East of the American League, you can't have too many weaknesses
Yeah, yeah, you
because
have to have a pretty well-rounded roster.
you're not going to get away. People are not going to let you get away with that. They're going to make you pay for it, and
Yeah,
I think that's the key right here.
yeah, it is.
Don't make mistakes, because we're going to pay. You will pay for it. And the
Mhm.
Orioles, with the Yankees, the Red Sox, and the Rays, and Toronto, they lost a lot of close games,
Yeah.
and a lot of that had to do with the late innings when oops, we gave up a run here, a run there, and we couldn't catch up.
Yeah, and that's a big thing because all of these AL East teams, you look at them across the board, and
Hmm.
they feel like they match up pretty well. They're all
Hmm.
somewhat
Right.
similarly balanced, but
Hmm.
some have a little bit of an advantage in certain areas versus others. But
Right.
you can't have that one glaring deficiency.
Not in Survive. No, you can't.
No.
I mean, the if you take the both, well, we'll just take the National East. I'm sorry, National League Central for just a minute. We were talking yesterday about the Reds and the Pirates, right, being contenders in that division. Well, you could be a contender in that division and be just a few games above 500. A few games above 500 in the American League East will have you in last place.
Yeah, it absolutely will. And that's just not something that'll work in the American League East, but you're 100% correct. It is something that could work in that NL Central. And
Right.
it's something that we saw kind of work last year for the NL Central, getting the Reds in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they didn't overwhelm anybody, but they did enough to get in. And that's all you got to do. Tell you what, it's coming up on 30 minutes on the hour. We have we're going to be back tomorrow. We will have a lot more to talk about with baseball because tomorrow is opening day on Netflix, and we'll talk a little bit more about where we can go to see the games, when you're going to be able to watch these games, the national games. There's going to be like almost a national game a night on somewhere. And then our new, MLB TV package deals and how that works. So we'll dig into those weeds tomorrow. But for now, Matthew and I are going to head on out, and hope that you all have a great day. And we will see you sometime around 3:00 tomorrow afternoon. Until then, have a nice day, everybody. I got you off at 30.